Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Choices. I'm your host, Nick Kroll. Today, I have Christina Shepard with me. Thanks for being here, especially so early in the morning.
Anytime.
I gotta say, I'm really happy that we're doing this it's 5:30 Eastern time, 4:30 Central time. She's in Texas, and every time I ever ask somebody to do a podcast, they never want to do it this early. So, thank you. This is pretty cool.
It helps. I'm a morning person too. I'm usually up pretty early, not this early on a Saturday, but it's not a big deal.
Yeah, I'm the same way. I'm a morning person. People actually, I won't bore you with the sleep talk here, but I read a book, Matthew Walker, Why We Sleep. It's actually on my desk right now, and he talks about how some people are actually born night owls and some people are born kind of early birds. And I'm definitely an early bird. My wife is absolutely a night owl.
So I actually had read something similar. I don't think it was that book. And I was, when I had read it, I go, oh, that makes sense because typically I can even stay up late. Like, you're in college, you go out, you have fun
Mhm.
early. I would still be awake. And I don't know if it was like a set point. I'm typically a morning person. So for me, I can easily just kind of get out of bed in the morning. Some days I don't want to, but once I get up and I'm walking around, I'm fine.
Yeah, actually this morning. So we were scheduled to do this at 5:30 my time. I set my alarm for like 4:50, and I woke up at 4:30 just naturally.
Right.
Um, so the real reason why Christina's here is because she did something that Dave Ramsey would consider her a weird person now for because normal sucks. And she paid off her house way early. And we want to talk about that because I think this is a tremendous thing you've did. This is something my wife and I are currently working on. We bought our house 6 months ago. So can you kind of like walk us through what made you even decide, hey, I'm going to pay my house off early? Because so many people, they just make the minimum payment for 30 years, refinance, and end up making it a 40-year mortgage. It's pretty crazy what the average person does.
Yeah, we're definitely not average, but I will say what actually helped is my parents were not average and my grandparents were not average. So my grandparents did not have debt other than a house. And then my parents did the same thing. And so growing up, even we did not have a lot. I mean, we had hardly any money growing up, to be honest. But I will say this, my mom was talented at making what little money we had stretch.
Mm.
So we always had food on the table. We could go to the beach. We could go have fun. She was a magician on making what money we had stretch. And when they got their first house, when they were married, they paid it off quickly. And so growing up, we watched them do that. Well, when I was in middle school, they had wanted a larger house. So they did not have enough money to go out and buy a larger house. And what they did was they ended up buying a lot. So they bought a lot. They had been saving up for this house. And then actually, we built the house. So every Saturday for a year and a half, we were out building. We would go after school and we would go build this house. I learned so much about framing and drywall.
That's
like,
How old were
and
you at this time? Middle school, you said?
I was like in sixth grade at the time because we got to move into the house in seventh grade. And before we had started the house project, like the house we were in was incredibly small. It was so tiny. And my closet was like this wide. And so my parents, when they're trying to sell this, my dad was like, "You need a closet you could walk into." And I thought,
Whoa.
sign me up. What I didn't realize I was signing my life away for a
Did
year
you
and a
have
half.
siblings?
I do have a brother.
Okay.
So it was, and then in the summer when we weren't in school, we're at the house.
Just
So
working.
we were working, but it was really a nice feeling of accomplishment when we were done. And now we kind of laugh because every time there's a hurricane that comes to town, um, like we know, oh, well, we didn't put 2x4s, we did 2x6s. And we know, like, oh, we reinforced this with hurricane clips on this many on every outside stud, and it was built better than code. And so we're always like, the house to go to in town.
That's awesome. That's so cool. Like I do some of that stuff like at work, like learn framing and all that. And it's pretty cool, like building something, watching something from just ground level become a building and like a
Yes.
room or something like that. It's pretty cool, like seeing your work when you're done.
Yes, yes, and, it's kinda nice because it translates into a nice skill to have when things break in your house, and
Yeah.
then you're like, "Oh, let me just go to Lowe's. I'm gonna go pick up some stuff. It'll be fine."
Yeah. No, that's awesome. So when you when you're when you bought your house, how old were you?
Oh, so it was just 4 years ago. I was 31 when I bought my first house. We bought
And
it.
you paid it off in 4 years?
Yes, 4 years.
Wow, that is
I guess
incredibly fast.
technically it was like 3 years and, like, 8 months, something like that.
That is crazy. So you must have been doing, I mean, just can you tell me the numbers? Like gonna do the math on
Yes.
numbers in my
So
head real quick.
the house was $290,000. Um, but since we had been renting, we always just kind of rented something that was okay,
Mhm.
not like we were never using our whole budget or anything anytime renting. And so just saving up money along the way and had a down payment of $100,000. So that helped. And then, you know, we just all of them, we no car payments. So everything went to the house.
Yeah, you have no debt, no other debt.
No debt. There's no debt.
Did you ever
We
have
had
debt?
like, huh?
Did you ever have debt?
Um kind of, but not really. I never really had any appreciable amount of debt.
Okay.
So everything I would always pay as I went, or I would sell stuff like immediately. If I ever in grad school, um, you have a pretty grueling schedule. I couldn't have an outside job.
Mhm.
If there was ever a point when I was getting low on money, I was selling things out of my apartment. Like people would give me a gift and I'm like, "Oh, this is amazing. I love it." And then it was listed on eBay. Like
Talk about sacrifice.
yes.
And
So, and and when I was in grad school, I there was a break in between where I could kind of save up some money in between undergrad and grad school. But the people I went to grad school with, they would all say, "Oh, we're going to go out to eat. We're going to get our hair and nails done. You have all this free money." And I'm like, "No, that's actually not free money. And you have to
yeah.
pay that back when you get out of here."
Yeah.
And so they would let us take out 30,000 a year is kind of what we were approved to take out.
Just to spend?
Like and to cover the tuition. And so people would just be like, "Oh, we're approved, this $30,000. Let's just take out 30,000." And I'm like,
Mhm.
You're crazy. You're crazy."
Big mistake, yeah.
I lived in an apartment that would not get me like mugged or killed going to in the dark.
Mhm.
Um, and that was it.
Yeah, well, I mean, hey, you got to do what you got to do because it's not easy to save $100,000. And I'm sure there was people that
No.
heard that and they just rolled their eyes and said, "Oh yeah, I'm out. I'll never be able to do that." Like, what? Are you married?
Hmm.
Yeah. So what did like you and your husband obviously have to be on board with this? I mean, this is not a one person's in, one person's
Yes.
out thing.
And we actually, it came when we came together, we were opposite ends, complete opposite ends. So I had no debt
Hmm.
coming into the relationship. And he had debt from like, "Oh, we're going to get this car. We're going to just have this random loan on the side to buy stuff. And we're going to have, and so he had quite a bit of debt. And I told him, that's fine, but I will not be in a relationship with anyone who continues to live that way.
Mm.
And I said, like, your past is your past. That's fine. If you don't change it, we're never going to be on the same page and it won't work. And luckily, once, I kind of explained it to him how much free money you could have if you just got rid of debt. He was on board. And so it was actually we got married after I was out of grad school. And I literally picked the highest paying job. I did not pick my favorite job. I picked the one with the highest offer that asked you to do a lot of weekends and overtime. And
Mhm.
I said, this is the one I want. I didn't have any kids and I volunteered for every weekend, overtime shift, every holiday shift if they wanted someone there. Um, we rented this really super, super ghetto house at the time. Like, I always laugh and I say, like, if anything were to happen to me and I were to pass out in the shower, it'd be fine because it wouldn't hit the floor because it was so tiny. Like you could barely fit your body in there. Um, we didn't have cable. We we still don't even have cable.
We don't either. Yeah,
Like
it's just a waste of
we
money.
pay for ESPN Plus and Disney and stuff like that. But we just always, especially when we were paying things off, we were making payments twice a month, and every payment went towards debt.
How
Just
did you budget that? Because like my wife and I have a pretty strict budget. Like one of the days we get paid, money gets transferred into a savings or bills account or whatever, wherever it needs to go. Like you guys had to have had a budget.
yes, and it kind of helps that Amazon was not as big back then. that that definitely helps. But so we weren't spending money. It was like the necessities, food. We did have a gym membership. Um, and then we just weren't spending money on doing anything else except paying off debt. There was not fun stuff happening at that time. It was just grind. All of your money goes towards eliminating debt.
And how long did it take to pay that off? How long did you guys live like that?
Luckily, that was only about 6 months.
See, and that's what people don't get is they say, "Oh, I don't want to sacrifice. I don't want to sacrifice 6 months." That's like if you live to
Yeah,
100, that's like 0.5% of your life. Like you
it's
can't
exactly that.
sacrifice 6 months
It
for.
is exactly that.
Yeah, it's one of those things. I personally never had debt either. When my wife and I got married, we made a decision we both had money saved, and we were like, hey, she had a student loan, and we were like, we're gonna just pay this off today, right? And she was
Mhm.
like, yep, might as well. So that's what we did, and like it set us back a lot because we'd been saving for a house for a long time, and the day we got married, we paid that off, and we just saved and saved and saved every day since. And we same thing. We ended up saving up 100 grand for a down payment, and it's just one of those things where every month you have to be so disciplined with your money. Because if you're not, I mean, you could buy $1,000 worth of wood right now to do like a little deck. It's
Yes.
crazy.
Yes. And the other thing is all of the little purchases add up that you don't pay attention to. Like, I'm going to run into the store and I'm going to grab a drink, or I'm going to go through Starbucks, or I want Chick-fil-A today. Those tiny purchases will literally wreck you. And people don't realize that because when you pay with a credit card, you kind of disassociate yourself and you don't
Hmm.
even realize how much you're spending until you get that statement at the end of the month and you see how much it actually adds up.
Yeah, because it's just $5 or it's just $10.
Exactly.
I just recently, like 3 months ago, maybe I helped one of my friends make a budget, and he was making about $5,000 a month, and he was spending about $4,800 a month. And there was a few months where he spent over the 5,000. He had no debts. He lived in an apartment or whatever. He had no debt. And I was like, listen, this is really good, but really, really bad at the same time. I was like, it's really good because you're starting from ground zero. You don't have debt, so you don't have to clean up anything. But and when we went over the numbers and he saw how much he was spending on, like, I think it was like Uber Eats or whatever those other delivery food
Hmm.
apps are. I mean, it was just that was the only way he was eating. Like this kid didn't even know what a grocery store looked like. He was just
Yeah.
Uber Eats or I don't know the other ones, but all those things like just kept adding up. It was like almost $1,000 a month. And then you go to restaurants and like just food, things you don't even hold in your hand. You're
Right.
spending thousands of dollars a month on. And I understand you gotta live your life, have fun. I'm all about that. But pay off your debt first, because then you don't have to feel guilty about going out to eat, and going and sitting down in a restaurant feels that much better.
It really does. And so growing up, my mom used to tell me one of like she always said the most appreciating asset you can buy is food.
Mm.
Um, Now I have more money than I had growing up, but I laugh because when I look back, we ate out 4 times a year, and it was for a birthday. Like each person got to pick a restaurant um, on their birthday of where we went to go eat. And I always picked Red Lobster. And I knew when my birthday came, I was going to get Red Lobster and I could pick whatever I could order whatever I wanted. And looking back, like that is insane. There are very few families now that make the sacrifice and say, we're going to go eat out on your birthday because we don't have the money. And, my parents did not go into debt when we did not have money. They just cut out everything extra, which is exactly what you should do.
Absolutely. And
Yeah.
so when you and your husband are on this journey, you pay off your debt, and then you look at each other and like, hey, we're debt free. This is awesome. So then what
Yes.
do you do?
Well, because we're in that phase right now. So, um,
Well, I mean, before
maybe,
you bought the house.
before we bought the house, it was just we were saving up money because we knew we would buy a house one day. And then the other thing is we just put money into the stock market and what I call like my fun money account. And
Hmm.
so anytime the stock market goes down and has a pretty big downward correction, like Brexit or even last year with the pandemic, all my money that's kind of laying around, that's when I put it into the market.
Boom. Yep.
And then when it rebounds, you just magically make this money.
It's like
So
Black Friday shopping in stocks.
yes, that's like, yeah, I will not go out and fight crowds for Black Friday, but if the market is making a correction, I am moving funds to put it in there.
I love it. I'm the same way. Like I look every day at it, and I'm like,
Yes.
okay, okay, okay. And then it dips like 20-30% over the course of 5 days. I'm like, yeah, that's when you buy, you know?
You're like, and now this is, yes. And, I've even told people at work because the people I work with, very few of them put money into the account in something separate than retirement. Like they have whatever the work retirement is, but they're
Mm,
not just putting money into this account. And I pulled up the app on my phone one day and I was like, look, I'm just sitting here and I did nothing this morning and I made $2,000. And I go, and that's just like this one account that I have.
yeah.
That's not even all of my accounts. And I go, I just sat here and did nothing. And
Yeah,
it just
I've
did
done the
this.
same thing. We don't
Yeah.
have that much in the market right now. I mean, to make 2000 a day, you got to have a good amount in there. But
Yeah.
we don't have that much in there right now because everything that we have just goes right to our mortgage. But there's days where I'm like, dude, look at
Right.
I made $500 just sitting here talking to you all day. Like, and
Yes.
people like don't get that, and because they see the total value of the account. We have like 10 to 15ish in the market right now.
Right.
And people see that value and they go, I don't have 10 to $15,000. I'm like, you think I did? Like, it's,
You just put it in there. It's
yeah,
crazy.
$200 here, $100 here. We try to do 500 a month, but
Hmm.
sometimes it goes towards the house because I get like the numbers on that. I've talked about it a million times before. Like the spread makes way more sense to put it in the market, but to not have a house payment, like
But the
we're gonna,
risk
yeah,
is nice.
exactly.
And I will say this, um, because yes, the spread says put it into the market because you're going to make more money with that because most house mortgages, the interest rate is pretty low on them. But I will say this, even when we purchased the house, we made a point to where the payments would be low. We were on one income for a while. So I was the only one working and paying everything. And we knew that when we bought the house. We knew we were going from two incomes to one. We planned it to where we could make a house payment comfortably on one income. And so we had this low house payment. It was like $940 a month. Um,
Wow.
I know for the house payment.
Is
And
that with
so
tax and insurance?
with tax and insurance, it was like 1,500.
Oh, okay.
So not terrible.
Yeah.
But we had planned it to where it'd be pretty low, and we could swing it on one income easily. So last year, I still had a house payment and Corona hits, and you know, like in the March timeframe,
Hmm.
everything's up in the air. What's going to happen? All of this at work, they were saying, well, you know, what if we end up working less? Which I work at a hospital, and that ended up not exactly being
Yeah, I think
correct.
it was the exact opposite for you.
um, and so, you know, someone at work said, like, what if we don't work? How are you going to pay your bills? And in my head, I was thinking through, and I was like, it only takes about $2,000 to keep my house running. Like, everyone fed, gas, maintenance on the vehicles, food, a house. And I was like, no, we'll be just fine with some savings. Unless Corona's going for decades, I'll be
Yeah,
okay.
exactly. I've seen that. So government employees, there was a time a year or two ago, maybe 3 years ago now, where they
Mhm.
just did not get paid for, I think it
Yes,
was 2 pay periods maybe, and people were freaking out. And I was just like, you can't miss a month of being paid. Like, you're getting back paid. It's not like you're gonna lose the money. You're gonna get the
that
money. And that was when it clicked for me, like, wow, people really just live paycheck. Cause same thing as you. I was like, if I don't get paid for another 6 months, I don't care. Like, it was awesome. They had us
exactly,
working less at the time,
exactly,
and I was like, this is great. Like, I'm getting paid the same, and I don't even have to show up at this point. Like, you know.
exactly.
So
Yeah, and it's crazy how many people live paycheck to paycheck, but it's also crazy how many people make six figures
and
that
still
live
live
paycheck
paycheck
to
to
paycheck.
paycheck. Yeah, and I
And
think
that's
some of that
what,
is
you know,
good.
that's what I'm amazed by. You know, I understand if you maybe have like a household income of $40,000 and you have kids, I can understand that. But when people are making six figures and they have nothing in savings, you're like, okay, no.
It's choices, like, it's
Yes.
not to make a podcast plug, but it's true. It's the choices you make. Like, you don't have to live paycheck to paycheck. I've even heard the mother making $40,000 a year with two kids pay off debts.
Yes, yes,
There's sacrifices that you make along the way. Is it a lot harder? Yes. But if you if you work for it and you really try, like, I believe anybody can do it. And I've had this argument with a lot of people. Like, a lot of people like, well, there's this person, I'm like, okay, but you're not even that person. Okay. Like, I'm talking about
yes,
you right now. Like, you can do this. Well, it's hard. And why am I going to sacrifice? I'm 40 years old. What's the point for me? And I'm just like, because if you're done by 45, you have another 40 years to go. Like, that's
yes.
why.
It is, it's literally hard when you're paying off debt. It's not fun. Okay.
Yeah.
I will say that. And it's typically a tedious process. Very few people are like, oh, I have this debt. I'm going to pay it off in a month. That's not how it works. It's something that takes sacrifice and months or years that
Hmm.
just go by. And you're just sort of, okay, let me just put all of my money to this again this month. Um,
And with a
but
house, it's over and over and over and over again, and you see how much money you're
yes,
spending, and you're like, oh my god, like I could. So my wife really wants a Bronco. I really want the new Corvette, and I'm like, we could literally have these things tomorrow if we wanted to at a dealership, but we owe $180,000 in debt, and we'll just pay off the house and then we'll buy it. Like,
yes.
it's
I will
it's
say this. Um, Luckily, I don't have a desire for a newer, nicer vehicle only because I have little creatures destroying the backseat of mine right now. And every time I sort of have this thought of like, oh, this car would be nice, then, they're in the back and they're like crunched an
kicking and
Oreo to
screaming.
dust
Yeah.
in the backseat or something. And I'm like, no, I'm fine in this one. And we do drive older vehicles. I'm not super into cars with kids. Before that, I had a Challenger and a Camaro. So I had fun cars,
Hmm.
and then I had children. So maybe when they're older, then I'll be like wanting to get a nicer car. But right now, I see them destroying the back seat of this one, and I cannot even fathom paying money for a vehicle to have that happen
Yeah.
again.
Speaking of
Yeah,
the kids, how hard was it to pay off a house with you have two kids, right?
I have two kids.
How hard is it to pay off the house with two kids? Because there's sacrifice in there, and there's, I mean, when you're a kid, you want everything you see. You go to the store,
Yes.
you're grabbing stuffed animals off the shelves. Mommy, can I have this? And to say no to that has got to be tough.
Yeah. So literally, and kids, they want everything at the store. So try not to take them into the store if you can, curbside as much as possible. But the other thing is every time they hear no, I would give them a reason. Like, no, we're not doing this. We're paying off debt. We're going to do this. And I have the chart on the wall and little house chart, and every square on it was $1,000. So they got to color it in, and at least it gave them something visual because for small, they were in preschool when we started. For them, they have no concept of hundreds of thousands of dollars.
They don't know
So
what they think. $10 is huge.
yes, yes. So for them, I'd let them color up the squares. And then once we got to the end of each row, we would do something fun. We'd go on a trip or, they would get something. So at least they knew, okay, we have these little goals along the way to the big goals. And I ended up making the last payment in December, kind of right before Christmas. And so the next morning, um, I told my daughter, I said, this is our house. And she goes, it's always been our house. And I go, no, no,
It's
no.
different.
We've lived in it and it's been the bank's house,
Yep.
but now it's ours. No matter what, this house is ours. And she goes, okay.
Yeah.
Like, and
That's
for
so
me, I'm
funny.
like, this is such an epic day. We have paid off an entire house. And she's like, okay, what's for breakfast?
Yeah, it matters nothing to them.
Nothing, nothing. They don't care. And it's also probably because mine were so young, they did not grasp the concept at all.
Mm.
But
I really like that chart. I think that's a great idea. Like my wife and I, obviously, we're talking about having kids. We'll probably have kids before the house is paid off, and
mhm,
I think that's a phenomenal idea because, like you said, they don't get that. They don't understand
no,
like hey, we're trying to own this house. Like they live in the house, they think it is owned. I remember growing up, I thought my parents owned the house, they own the cars. Like no, the bank owns that stuff. As I got older, I
bank owns
realized that.
all of it.
And when the bank owns it, you're at the mercy of the bank. That's why. How do you feel about this? I'm going to get a little off track. I'll come back to that chart in a second. But when you owe debt, a lot of people, like I know some people that owe like $40,000 on a car, but they have like $30,000 in a savings account, which is pretty rare. Like, but I know a few people like that. And I tell them, dude, pay off the truck. Like you have 30 grand sitting there, like put that on the 40,000 and then you only owe 10. How do you feel about that?
I would for sure put the money on there. I know Dave Ramsey says to take it down to $1,000. I can't do that. I wouldn't sleep at night. I need to have more than $1,000 in a
Mhm.
savings account, but whatever is in savings, I would take it down to where you could at least live 3 months and pay your bills, and everything else I would put on debt. Like,
Okay.
I don't need to have piles of money in a savings account. Um, and in my head, especially when paying off debt, I assume 3 months is the most you kind of need in a savings account because I can do something to make money in 3 months. Like you could tell me that for some reason, all of the hospitals and clinics in my town, for some ungodly reason, had closed. And you would find me delivering pizza or being an Uber driver or just doing literally something else. And I would hustle so hard. So I can never imagine not having a paycheck for 3 months.
Right. And some people just think, oh yeah, I got laid off my job. And they sit at home on the couch until their
Yes.
job says, hey, you ready to come back? Like that's a discipline, a mindset. I mean, that's just
Yes.
there's so many ways to make money, especially in this country. I mean, it's
Yeah,
crazy.
especially in this country. And, I know a lot of people lost their jobs due to Corona. And one day after work, this guy came and he asked if he could paint numbers on the curbs. So
Mm,
they were going and they were making it nicer, reflective, like paint your house number on the curb in case you needed it.
yeah.
And I thought, Yeah, you're out here making money. Why not? Go put my number on the curb in case the cops ever need to
Yeah.
find my house better at night.
Yeah, no, that's there's always a way. It doesn't matter. Like, the free market is a beautiful thing.
It is such a beautiful thing. Literally, there is a way to make money in this country, and so many people think like, "Oh, I lost this job. I would never take a job where I make less." And for me, I would never not take a job where I could not provide something for my family.
Yep,
Even if it was a lower paying job, I would hustle harder and I would hustle longer to make sure I could provide for my family.
absolutely. You do what you got to do.
Yes.
Um, so back to the chart here. Got a little sidetracked. How much do you think that thing helped them, like your kids, make goals? I mean, they're still pretty young right now, right?
Yes.
But I feel like something like that is going to stick with them for a while, even if they don't show it. Like, I listen to John Deloney a lot. He's a Ramsey personality. He's always talking about like what
Mhm.
kids pick up. And I feel like something like that is going to help them in the long term by setting like personal goals for
Yes.
themselves.
Yes. So the chart helps. And then also on our refrigerator, we just have the calendar where we write things that have to happen for each month. As we set at the calendar at the beginning of the month, I have each kid write a personal goal that they
Mm.
want to do that month that they can work on. And sometimes it's like, be nice to my sister or do a back bend kick over or something. And I told them they can put whatever they want in there, except one tried putting eat more ice cream. And I was like, that's not quite the goal we want. But so at the beginning of the month, we sit down and they put goals on the calendar that they can look at throughout the month. They get to X off the calendar. And every time they X off the calendar, they have to look at their goal. They see it at the top of the calendar. So I told them, you have to, if you want to work towards something, you can't just aimlessly go. Think about what you want and then think of the path to get there.
Mm. I like that. I think your kids are going to turn out pretty all right.
I hope so. And I always hear, I've heard it, but you don't notice it until you see it when they say more is caught than taught.
Yep.
Um, and it's true because then there's all these other things that I don't tell them that they just see me doing and then they start doing it. And you're
Mm.
like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
So just be that positive example.
How does having a paid off house help the kids too and help you and your husband? Like, how do you guys feel now after you paid it off? And what are the things that you decided to start doing with money?
Well, we sort of went from paying off the house. We are eating out more.
Yep.
So we, and even when I say more, it's like once a week. So it's nothing epic. But right. Um, we're actually already saving for a second house.
Nice. Investment
So
property?
yes, either an investment property, but we want it somewhere with blue water, like
Mm. Like a lake house?
somewhere, no, like somewhere in the Caribbean.
Oh, okay. I like
Uh-huh.
that.
Yes. So we sort of went from we paid off this house and now we're just saving towards another house.
And how do you best save? Because I think my biggest mistake I ever made with money was when we were saving for the house we have now. We we just put everything in a savings account. We got up to $130,000 in a savings account, and it was just making $0 a month. I think we made like $15 a month on the interest. It was the biggest mistake I ever made.
Yeah, I just have an investment account and then um it's pretty boring. It's just like the S&P and
Mm,
index stocks. And I throw that in there. So we have a separate savings, which is obviously like 6 months of expenses to run everything on the house, or bigger items like if our AC were to go out or things like that. And
mhm.
then the other stuff, I just have in an investment account that I figure I can get to if I need it.
How did you get into investing? Because a lot of people, when I say, "Oh yeah, I do stocks or whatever," they're like, "Oh wow," they think you're like some like bookie. It's really not hard. I mean, I've when I help people do it, it takes like 10 minutes to set up a Fidelity account or whatever.
Yes. First off, it's free to learn anything in this country
Ah, great
between
point.
podcasts and YouTube.
Yep.
But this was the other thing. When I say my parents had a really they set me up for success. When I was 16 and I started working, making $5 an hour, my dad told me, you need to put money into a Roth IRA. And I said, don't know what this is. And you're crazy. I want money to go out with my friends, and I want to go
Mm-hmm.
buy clothes, and I want to buy all these things that I can't buy.
Mm-hmm.
And I only made $5 an hour. And he said, I don't care if you think I'm crazy. You have to do this. You have to set it. You have to do this. So he set up a Roth IRA, and I think at the time it had both of our names on it because I was not even 18. I was
Mm-hmm.
16 at the time. Um, and so we're talking. I had these tiny, I made $5 an hour after school. So my paychecks were not epic by any means. And I was having to put money into this Roth IRA. And I was just like, okay, I'm probably not even going to make it to 60, but whatever, the mindset of a 16-year-old. Um, so I had started doing that and I kind of didn't pay attention to it, to be honest. Like I would just put money into this account and I did not pay attention to it. Anytime if I had a job, money was going into that account. Um, and honestly, it was not until I was like towards my late 20s and I looked back at that account and I saw what was in there and I was like, I didn't even put much in there.
Yeah.
But it was because it's been in there for so long.
Yeah. Money makes money.
Yes, it's insane. And you're sitting there and you're like, my little minimum wage job grew into that. And so, at the time, my dad was like, yeah, just put it in an index fund, kind of just covers everything. You're 16, you can put it in whatever you want. And so it wasn't until I would say maybe 8 or 9 years ago that then I actually started paying attention to the market myself and, you know, not just picking your work fund on your 401k, but actually choosing your own stuff to set
Mm-hmm.
up your 401k, and actually paying attention to the market. And I listened to the Market Foolery podcast. And so it's a shorter podcast, Monday through Thursday of market tips. So I was always laughing because for a while, had a 1 hour commute each way
Mm.
to work. Um, and of course, I had kids in the car with me on my 1 hour commute because I picked a daycare near my work. And I was like, what if their first words are earning seasons or quarterly reports or things like that?
Oh man, that's good though. I mean, podcast
Yeah.
is you made a very great point that I want to hit on again, is that it's free to learn anything. That's what I did. I sat
Yes.
on YouTube. My parents I don't even think they know what the stock market is, honestly. Like
Yeah.
they do, but like they don't invest, they don't do anything like that. They have their work retirement funds. And I also want to make the point that I think it's awesome that your parents did that, because I think a lot of people's parents will try to push them in that direction, but it's, oh, my parents said this, I don't listen to my parents. And that,
Hmm.
I mean, sometimes your parents do know what the hell they're talking about.
Yes.
It does happen. So I think it's cool that you actually respected your parents enough to listen to them, because my
Yes.
parents would tell me stuff when I was a kid and I was like, yeah, okay. And then I got older and I was like, maybe that made sense.
Yeah. The older I get, the smarter they get, is what I say.
Yeah. But the podcast, YouTube, that's what I did. I mean, I had my laptop, I had my phone, and I think my wife's laptop for like 3 days straight. It was during the pandemic that I started learning this stuff, because I was like, I have all this time, like I'm
Hmm.
going to learn something. I don't work in a hospital like you, so I had time. And I remember having like Yahoo Finance live on one screen. My phone was on the Yahoo Finance like stock app, and then I had my Fidelity account open on another screen, just like playing with everything. Just it took me like 3 days to kind of figure out like what things meant. I mean, I was trying to look up companies and I didn't even know how to look up a company. Like I had to figure out what a
Hmm.
ticker was and what a symbol is and all this. And
Yeah.
you say that stuff and people are like, oh yeah, that seems difficult. Like it was like 3 days, like 3 days,
Yeah.
three, maybe 5, 6. I mean, maybe an 8-hour day at the beginning, because I was having fun and interested, but it was like, I don't know, probably 20 hours of my time. And now I know how to invest in the stock market. And I'm no professional. Like I wouldn't take my own advice. Like I do some pretty interesting things sometimes, but it's because the money that we put into stocks, I say, is money we could burn and we wouldn't miss, So
Correct.
I'm trying to
Correct.
take a big risk on that. And I do quite a few penny stocks because if one of those hits, we're gonna pay the house off like tomorrow. So and then we do some of the safer stocks too. Like my wife's, so we both have a individual account, and my wife's, we do more of the mutual funds like S&P, stuff like that. And then I do more of the individual stocks and penny stocks and stuff like that.
Mhm.
So we try to be diversified because eventually we're hoping to, we might not, we'll see at the time. But right now the plan is to grow that to whatever the mortgage balance, whenever that and the mortgage balance equal, just hit the mortgage all at
Pay it
once.
off and be done. Yeah.
Yeah. So we'll see when the time comes. That's probably like 4 years away, but we'll see.
But it's okay because the time's gonna pass anyway. Just
Yeah.
keep saving.
Yeah.
Yeah, and we have separate accounts as well. So I kind of do whatever I want on my account, and he does whatever he wants on his account.
Hmm.
And so it kind of ends up being more diversified because I pick more like larger companies in mine, and he likes to pick more like tech and oil and gas. So if we were
Mm.
to combine our accounts, it would end up being diversified.
Yeah. And I think that was kind of our goal too. My wife she doesn't really do the stock stuff. Like I do it for her. She's just like, hey, yeah, I do this, do that. And she'll
Uh-huh.
look like a few companies. Like she's like, oh, let me put some in this. All right, sure, go ahead. But it's having that diversified portfolio is going to help in pandemics or whatever, because some
Mhm.
will keep going up and some will go down. And when what goes down must come up typically, unless you're in the penny stocks, then you're probably going to
Yes.
lose your money. But
Yeah, and I will say this. So like at work, whenever you have your 401k, they tend to automatically put you into this like projected retirement age of, you know, like, oh, 2030 you'll retire, 2040 or whatever, and it picks your stocks based on that retirement age. Um, and it picks some pretty crappy ones sometimes.
mm,
So for me, as soon as I got this job, I immediately just went into that account and changed it up to be diversified the way I wanted it. But also, I can do riskier stuff. I'm in my 30s. I don't anticipate not
not
being
being
or
here.
not working anytime soon.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. How so you guys had that calendar that was for kind of the whole family. Did you and your husband have anything like for me personally, I have the number on my wall. My laptop's like plugged into things, so I'm not going to turn around, but I have the number that we need to pay on the wall. Our goal was to own the house before we're 30. We're on track to do it a little bit before that now, because that the number on the wall is 5312, and that's like the payment that we need to make every single month to own it before we're 30. And there's months where we'll put 6,000 or we'll put
mhm.
6,200, and then when we have the stocks, like if it equals out, we're definitely on track to own it before then. But that's my biggest thing, is just walking into my office and seeing that number every single day is like a reminder of, hey, this is why you're not buying a new Corvette tomorrow, because you're gonna
Yeah.
own the house. Like it keeps me
Um,
grounded.
I did not have a number on the wall. And to be honest, I would consider 2020 to be a wash. Like, as far as he actually was gone for pretty much all of 2020. So he was not here at all. So it was me alone working during the day and homeschooling at night. Um, so we would start homeschool at 6 p.m. Okay. And I would homeschool them from 6 to 8. And then I just was like, okay, 2 hours, that's pretty much like a mental max on young children. So between like working during the day, homeschooling in the evening, I was just treading water
Hmm.
on my sanity. I
Hmm.
just was like, let me make it to tomorrow. I was sort of hoping I could get corona so I could get a break from work. I was hoping, and nothing, nothing. You come in contact with so many corona patients and nothing. Um, I did not get my corona break from work. But so it was just I was treading water all of 2020. So I did not think about anything else. I had several vacations already booked for 2020 that did get canceled.
Mm.
So with each canceled trip, I just was like, okay, on
Extra
to the
money towards
house.
the house.
Extra money towards the house.
Did you guys have a set like payoff date goal?
Not really.
No, it
Not
was just
really.
kind of what we're gonna pay it off really fast, and whatever happens, happens. Yeah.
Yes, pretty much. We did not have this set payoff goal per se. Originally, we were like, it'd be cool if we did it in 5 years. Um, but then towards the end, especially last year, I was obviously drowning in trying to figure out to have time for anything. But the plus that came out of it was everything was shut down and you could go nowhere.
Mm.
So I had more money to put on the house.
Yeah. And what's crazy is that's a choice, right? Because so many people had more money because they couldn't go anywhere, and they would go to Amazon and just have things delivered
Yes.
to their door every day. And it's like, it was such an opportunity. And I think a lot of people missed the opportunity. Some people capitalized on it, but a lot of people missed the opportunity to change their habits, to learn a new trade, to learn a new skill, to
Yes.
save money, to put money in the stock market or anything like that. I mean, the, when I started in the stocks, I started in like April of
Mhm.
2020. And when I put the stocks that I bought at that time are 100% right now. I've made 100%
I was gonna
of
say
my
that was a good
investment.
time to start though.
Yeah. But unfortunately, that was when I started. So I didn't have like 10, 20, $30,000 to put in at that time.
Uh-huh.
And I think I put like $2,000 in, and they have gone up. Those four stocks, I put $500 in four different things. Those four made me over 100%. And
Yes.
I held them for a year, and the capital gains was extremely low on it. So I actually made like good amount of money on that. And like now recently, I mean, it's all over the place, but
Yes.
eventually it's going to go up. It always trends up. And it's one of those things where next time there's a pandemic, like I'm so glad I learned this, because there's guaranteed to be another, I don't know, recession, pandemic, whatever you want to call
Mhm.
it. And now I know, okay, as much whatever we have is going in, because it's just going to
Literally.
take off when it's done.
Literally. Yes. And for me, I kind of wish I had put more in actually in that like March timeframe. But at the same time, I was also like, well, we're trying to pay as much as we can on the house.
Yeah.
So, but it was one of those where I was like, if the house was paid off and I had put everything in at that time, it would have been fun.
Yeah. You'd be sitting real, you'd have that house in the
I'd
Caribbean
have my
right now.
second house already.
That's awesome. So you're also like pretty fitness motivated as well, and you have a pretty
Mhm.
sweet home gym. And
Yes.
now that you have the extra money because you're not paying a mortgage, like where do you go with like a home gym, like building stuff like that? Because people always give me the, oh, must be nice to have a home gym. And I'm like, yeah, it actually is very nice. Thanks. Like I own all of it.
Yes.
It's real nice.
So I keep thinking I want to like redo the walls on the inside just because it's like unfinished plywood. And
Hmm.
in my head, I'm like, oh, we should paint that or just, drywall it out. And I do want to change the floors in there. And I got a ton of comments last year on that. Must be lucky that
Oh,
you have
I
all
love
this
that.
in your garage. And I was like, I must be lucky that someone broke into
Yeah.
my house and delivered all this stuff for free. I must be.
Yeah. Right.
um, and the whole reason it started when I started having kids, I lived in Hawaii and traffic is terrible, 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 terrible. Um, so, in addition to my work day, I would drive an hour each direction to get to work, like
Mhm.
just sitting in traffic. Um, and there was really no time for me to do a workout once I started having kids. Like, I couldn't just go to the gym because the
Where do you put the
gym,
kids?
where do you put the kids? Um, so for me, I started off with a barbell and some bumper plates.
That's
And that
exactly
was
what we
it.
did. Yep.
And I was like, okay, this is a good start. You can do quite a bit with a barbell. Um, and so then I kind of started looking at it as an investment. Okay, most people are going to pay um, $20 a month for a gym membership or whatever. And I said, so in December, at the end of the year, I would buy one item for my gym, one item. And it was typically lower cost
Mhm.
too. Um, so, and on my Christmas list, and they were like, "What do you want?" I'm like, "I want this for my gym."
I'm the same way now.
Yes. And so a lot of the items I'm like, "Oh, it's held up well. I've had that since December of whatever." December was the magic month, apparently. But what is in my gym did not just appear there one day.
Hmm.
It was small purchases over time. And I've had the gym for around 8 or 9 years now. So
It adds up.
I've been I've been adding to it during that time. And I really wanted a stair climber in my gym, and those things are stupid expensive. They're
Hmm.
like $5,000 or $6,000. Um, it probably took me 6 months to finally find a cheap used one.
Yep.
And it was from a guy on the East Coast, and he said he would pay freight to Texas. And I said, okay, done.
That's all.
Like,
Yeah. Opportunity, right?
yes. And it took so long to find it. But obviously waiting 6 months, I was able to find one for $1,100 instead of $5,000 or $6,000.
A-
And
And
he
that's
paid the shipping.
part of the beauty of not having debt, and because now you're searching for opportunity. Like, opportunity is one of those things
Yes.
that everybody is presented with, but some people can't capitalize on that. Like,
Right.
if you didn't have that $1,100 set aside, you would have never been able to get that. Not to mention, you're searching for it, you're looking for, I mean, every day I open the Facebook marketplace, I'm like, oh, let's see if we can find any
Same.
deals. Recently there hasn't really been too many
Yes. And I'm
deals,
like,
it's
what
been
are we
more
going to get rid
expensive.
of?
But yeah, there's always somebody trying to get rid of something, or there's always something on the marketplace. Like, my thing right now, I'm trying to find a good lat tower and a low row combo.
Uh-huh.
And every day I'm on there looking, and sometimes I find one, can't work out a price. I'm like, all right, I can wait, because I have stuff to make it work right now, but I really
Uh-huh.
want like the actual thing. And it's going back to the people come in and like, oh, that must be nice. Like, it's one of those, the must be nice people. Me and
I
my
hate it.
friend Josh, I don't know, he came on the podcast a few times. He goes nuts over the must be nice people, because it's like, these people don't understand what it is to like work for something. They just go to work,
Yes.
they come home, they watch Netflix, they piss their money away on Amazon, and they repeat it. And they piss their money away on booze. And it drives him nuts. I mean, it drives me nuts too, but I kind of think,
Yes. And then when they say it must be nice, and I'm like, I work all day.
yeah, and you could have it too, like anybody
Anyone can
can
have
do
it.
it. Yeah,
Yeah.
we're not like rich. Like, we don't make like a ton of money. We just know how to
No.
spend our money. And we weren't
It's
taught
that.
this. Like, we learned this. This was a learned behavior. It wasn't something that like we grew up into money. Like, me, Josh, my wife, like all of us, nobody knew what we were doing. And now we're all doing, I'd say, pretty well for the age
Hmm.
we are. Like, it's one of those things where if you apply yourself, you can do anything.
It's literally that. And so many people discount the opportunities in the United States, and
Hmm.
they think, oh, you need someone to help you out, or you need this, or there's no way you can get ahead. College should be free. And every time someone tells me college should be free, I think of all of the people who cannot say the correct two, two, and two, there and there. And I'm like, that high school education was free and you did not use it.
Yep. And not to
Free.
mention, I don't know, I'm not going to go down this whole thing here, but like, if you look at countries that do have free college, it's even hard. Like, Mexico is one of those like free college countries.
Mhm.
Very hard to get a job because everybody has the same credentials. So what
Right.
makes you different? What sets you apart? Because everybody
Yeah.
can go. So it's one of those things that it doesn't, I'm not a believer in it. I think it's stupid. Like, if you made a choice to go to school, you owe your loans, you should pay your loans.
You should pay your loans. 100% that. You should make the sacrifices and pay your loans. They should not magically be forgiven. But so my both of my parents grew up really poor. Um, we're talking no money. My dad he's one of six kids. And then on my mom's side, my grandfather just worked on a ranch. He did not own the ranch. He was just someone who worked on that ranch.
Mhm.
So both of them grew up incredibly poor, um, but they taught us how to manage money, which is amazing. And so when I think of the opportunities in the United States, when I was young, my dad quit his job to start a company. So we went years um, living off my mom's income, which was a secretary. So not not lavish
A
at
family of
all.
4 living off a secretary's salary.
Yes.
I imagine there were sacrifices made.
And so that was how I grew up. And now I look back, and my dad has a company that is successful and makes quite a bit of money. And in my head, I just think you can come from nothing in this country and go to something. And so many people discount that. And
Mhm.
all the time, he gets the must be lucky too. And,
Oh, sure.
and I think in my head, I'm like, oh yeah, must be lucky. He had no income for so long because he was trying, any money he made had to go back into the company for
Mhm.
buying equipment or capital or things like that. So
What is
he
his
had no
company?
money.
What does he
Uh,
do?
Land surveying.
Land surveying?
Uh-huh.
Ah,
Like,
okay. That's
yeah.
cool. That's probably pretty big in Texas because Texas is all privatized land, right?
That one I don't know.
I'm
I
pretty sure
guess so.
Texas, like, so sometimes like states own land. I could be completely wrong on this, so don't like quote me,
Mhm.
but I'm pretty sure most states like own part of their land and then they kind of like sell it out. But Texas is all privatized land. So like there isn't a square foot in Texas that isn't owned by a person.
Oh, that one I had no idea on.
Yeah, I mean, I could
Um,
be wrong. I'm pretty sure I've heard that a few times though.
yeah.
But that's
That's
cool
kind
that
of
he
cool
did
though.
that.
Yeah. So he started a surveying company, which the surveying equipment was pretty expensive. And so all the money went towards any money he made at that point went towards buying equipment.
Hmm.
Um, and so I just look back and I saw sacrifices that my parents made for us.
Mhm.
And it literally comes down to you have to make a choice. Like,
Mhm.
if you want to be debt free, you have to pay off your debt. Is it going to be uncomfortable? Yes. If
Absolutely.
you want to have a fit physique, you have to put on the work. Like, you literally cannot fake it.
Mhm.
You have to go do some work in the gym, and you have to be mindful of your nutrition, and it's going to take work. And all the time, people think, oh, I want to lose weight. I'm going to do this for 30 days. And first off, you won't get very far in 30 days, but maybe
Maybe you
for
lose a few
maybe
pounds.
10 pounds if you're really overweight. Um, but you have to keep doing that.
Mhm.
Otherwise, it goes away, and it's a choice you have to make.
Yep. It's
So,
the consistency of it, and that's another
yes.
thing that I hear all the time, like, "Oh, you're lucky," like, I can eat like shit if I want to, but I don't, but, if I ever have, like, buffalo tenders or a chicken parm, which those are my 2 favorite meals, I think I've said it a million times, like, those are my
Uh-huh.
2 favorite, like, cheat meals, and we'll go out and I'll destroy that, and people are like, "Oh, you're so lucky, like, it must be nice to be able to eat that, I'd gain 10 pounds," I'm like, "Yeah, whatever, man, like, you have no idea, like, you have
Yes.
no idea. I eat
No
the same
idea.
exact chicken, green beans, and potatoes 3 times a day, 6 days a week. Like, don't even don't start, all right?
You're like, this is what I'm eating right now.
Yeah, they don't it's just one of those things where no matter what you do, if you put in the work, like, that's why I love fitness because your body is a reflection of how hard you work. You
Yes.
can look at anybody and be like, "Okay, I know how this guy's busting his ass inside and outside of the gym." And it's
Yes.
funny when you go to the gym, like we have the home gym, but I do go to the gym sometimes just because I like to use like other equipment or something. And when you see someone else who's like also really like in good shape, there's that like that mutual respect. Like yesterday, I went to the gym and there was this other guy. He was way bigger than me. He was like tall, wider, like not as cut, but I like we were both kept looking at each other, and at one point we just kind of like, "What's up, man? Like, how are you?"
Yes.
There's just that mutual respect because like I know what he's doing and he knows what
Mhm.
I'm doing, and it's pretty cool. Like I don't know, I love fitness for that reason. Like just that, the harder you work, the better results you're gonna get.
Yes, yes. And like I said, you can't fake it. You cannot
No.
fake being fit. You could, people can go get plastic surgery to look a certain way, but you cannot fake being fit or
Yeah.
strong.
No, I agree. It's one of those things where you only get out of it what you put into it. And that's why like, people always ask me for workout advice. They always ask, what should I eat? What should I do? And I had someone the other day come up and he was like, I want to get my bench up a little bit. And I kind of knew the answer to this before I asked, but I was like, how do you sleep? He's like 4 or 5 hours. And I was like, try sleeping 8. I bet your bench will go up because your body's just not recovering enough. And yeah, I just, and he's busy, right? We're all busy though. But if your goal is to get your bench up, go sleep a little bit more. Don't sleep for 4 or 5 hours and then come in and bench. Like sleep 8 hours, come in and bench, and do that consistently, and it'll go up just that alone because his workouts are pretty good. Diet, obviously you can always improve, but I was like, that's his biggest fault right there is the sleep. And I was like, if you can do that, man, I'm telling you, it'll work. And people just, it's a choice now. Do I want to stay up? And he's not watching like Netflix and Hulu and stuff. He's like working. I get it. But most people, they're staying up playing Call of Duty
Yeah.
till 12 o'clock, getting up at 4 a.m. and they wonder why they're tired all day. I'm like, oh, I can survive off 4 hours. No, you can't. Like I'm big in the 3, like diet, exercise, sleep. And that's what I preach because this one too. I always get asked about supplements and it drives me insane. Like I'm very like against supplements. I'm against like steroids. Like if you're competing and you're like Arnold or Jay Cutler, like people like that are using them to their full potential, like cool, good for you. Like I couldn't do
Yeah.
what you're doing, even if I don't know, I wouldn't say that, but most people that take steroids can't do that because they're not working that hard. Like Arnold was
No.
like 6 hours a day in a gym, but these people, they want the supplements, they want the shortcut, and that's not going to get you there. Like it only works for a certain amount of time. I had a couple friends like cycle on and off the pro hormones. I think I don't remember what kind, but he got really strong, got bigger, came off of them, got small, got weaker. And I was like, how's it now? He's like, well, it was cool. Yeah, was.
Was. I always say the supplements don't matter if you have your diet, sleep, and workout right. Like
Yeah.
so many people are not doing that end correctly. And then they're just like, oh, I'm just going to take this.
Yeah.
And I'm like, why? It doesn't even
Hmm.
matter. These
Yeah.
are the easiest ones.
Hmm. I love my
These
favorite
ones
one
are
is
cheaper.
yeah. My favorite is the pre-workout. What do you take for pre-workout? And I tell people I don't. And they're like, what do you mean you don't take pre-workout? I'm like, nope, no pre-workout. You drink coffee? Nope. I don't take any like form of caffeine. I like tea. I won't even drink green tea because it's like a form of caffeine. I'll drink like white tea or herbal tea, something like that. But I I don't need caffeine because I sleep 8 hours.
Right.
Typically, like there's some nights where I'll get like 7, maybe 6 if I'm like, it's very rare though. Like 7 is like the
Mhm.
least I'll get most of the time. And I'm just like, you don't need caffeine if you sleep right. And then when you don't need caffeine, your body can perform better because you don't have that caffeine crash later. And like, it's a whole like, it's just the most natural way to do it. The sleep, diet, exercise. It's the most natural way. And it's, in my opinion, the best way because it's also I want to say it's the hardest way, but it seems the hardest way because it
Yes.
takes the most discipline.
Yes. I will say this. I have a coffee every morning. I wake up early. I drink my coffee in sweet, sweet silence before I go out to the gym. Um, I'm not caffeine free, but I did cut down everything to that 1 cup of coffee. And I probably could do a decaf, but I always just get the regular caffeinated. I have 1 cup of black coffee and I cannot go without it. I need it. Like
I have
I
a
went
friend
to
that's like that, and
I
every
went
morning he wakes up with the little sleepy face, and he's like, "Ugh." And like this is obviously a joke. I'm just like, what happens if somebody like breaks into your house? Like he's gonna be like, give me a sec, like let me wake up first, I'm like,
yeah, and mine isn't even because I'm sleeping. It's just because I want a coffee at that
yeah,
point.
yeah. Some people just
Yeah.
like the taste.
Yeah. I like the taste. And I'm not doing like a fancy coffee with cream and sugar and things like that. I just want a regular hot
Yeah,
coffee.
yeah. I mean, I've had I think I sipped my father's coffee once when I was like a child, and I spit it back out. I was like, yeah, never again. And
Nope, I like it. It's so good. It's so good.
yeah, I'm at that point now where like there's certain things I haven't done. Like I've never smoked weed in my life, and I'm just like I'm at that point now. I'm like I'm just never going to. Like there's no like
Yeah.
I kind of want to like make that like a thing. Like I'll die without smoking weed. I'll die without drinking a cup of coffee. I'll die without taking pre-workout. Like I just at this point it's like I don't know. I'm 24 now. Like I haven't done it yet. I shouldn't ever need to do it.
I haven't smoked weed, but I'm not living without my coffee.
That's pretty cool, actually. Yeah, it's very rare to meet people that haven't smoked weed before.
Yeah, I
It's like in
know.
high school when all your friends were doing it, you were just like, yeah, no, I'm good.
I was drinking.
I didn't really drink much. Like I always used to get all sorts of shit from my friends because I was around it every weekend. I mean, it was like everybody else was doing. I was just like, man, I'm good. I had my workout in the morning. Like I knew I had to go work out on Saturday and Sunday, and
I
that's
was
kind of.
also not working out in high school. I was not fit.
Oh, really? Yeah.
No,
Nah.
I was not into working out until maybe 12 years ago, I'd say. So we're talking, I grew up not athletic. I did I did not really play a lot of sports. I did like basketball in middle school. Um,
In middle school.
but yeah, I know. I was not athletic. And then in college, I literally ate and drank my way through college. Like I lived on
Wow.
Panda Express and alcohol.
What a 180 you've done though to come from like not poor but come from like not wealthy,
Uh-huh.
come from that kind of like unhealthy background, and now you're
Yeah.
got a paid for house, a home gym, working out 5-6 days a week. Like what a turnaround. What would you say to
That's
somebody?
yeah.
What would
I
you
just
say?
call it the glow up. I say it's the glow
The
up. You get
glow
better
up.
with age.
What do you say to some
Because
college kid right now that's in college that doesn't have a lot of money, that's not very healthy? Like, what would you tell him to turn to him or her to how would they start turning their life around?
for sure, quit the fast food. And I did the fast food a ton in undergrad. Um, Luckily, by grad school, I had no money, but for fast food. But the best way to turn it around would I just say, I almost want to say drink less, but I had so much fun in my 20s. So for sure, I would just say make the majority of your lifestyle choices to be healthy. So make the majority of your choices to be good food and water. And if you go out and you have fun on a Friday, Saturday, that's fine. But I would say a solid 80 to 90% of your lifestyle needs to be good choices.
Hmm.
You
And if you
know,
don't have, and if you're not making any currently, start with one, and then one
start with
becomes
one.
two, two
Start with
becomes
one.
three, three
Get a water
becomes
instead
four.
of a soda.
Yep.
Make something at home instead of going through a drive-through.
Hmm.
Start slow, and then over time it changes, because I didn't go from like this party girl drinking all this fast food and then I woke up to where I am now. it
Right.
was
It was slow transition.
it was a slow transition. It was like okay, maybe I'm gonna do less fried food and less fast food and then less drinking. It definitely
Hmm.
was a slow process. It was not like I just magically woke up to where I am now.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's the best
Mhm.
thing that I especially tell people too is like, listen, it's not, I don't expect you to be working out 5-6 days overnight.
No,
And if you don't even want to, like some people don't want to do that. Some people just want
no.
to work out so they can eat bad. Like whatever your goal is, whatever. I mean, I would encourage you to work out 5, 6, 7 days a week, you know, eat healthy all the time, sleep 8 hours every night. Some people don't want to do that. Some people would rather live their life, and something I hear all the time, especially when it comes to like money and paying off debt and like getting out of debt is like, well, what if I die tomorrow? And my favorite response to that is, well, what if you don't? What if you
You
live to your,
probably won't.
yeah, exactly. Like, what if you don't? What if you live to your 85 and you have kids, grandkids, and a whole line of poverty behind you because of the choices that you made every day to quote, live like, what is it? YOLO?
YOLO.
Whatever that is, like live like you're dying, like whatever. I forget what they call it, but yeah, like I don't know. That's one of those things where I'm like, I don't want to screw the rest of my family. Like I want to change my family's tree.
That was literally what my parents told me. They said each generation they wanted it to be better. My grandparents do not have a high school education, and they just didn't. And they ended up having to like get jobs before being able to have a high school education. So they quit high school to have jobs.
Wow.
Um, my parents have a high school education, and they both have some college. So my brother and I, we actually graduated on the same day, sitting next to each other. I got to beat him only because alphabetically my first name beat his. So I got to walk across the stage first. And my mom, I just remember her saying how proud she was because we had both gone to college and graduated. And she had told us, we want every generation better than the last.
Mm.
And I really took that to heart. And so for me, I just think, okay, I want to provide a better life for my kids, better opportunities, because I want them to do better than I'm doing.
Mm. And I think most people want that. I think most people want to see their kids do
Mhm.
better than them. Most people want to see their grandkids do better than their kids, and every generation kind of grow. I think there's some people out there that lack and they're very selfish and they only care about themselves and, F everybody else. And those are the people that they're really not going anywhere anyways.
Mhm.
But do you have anything else that you want to add? I just about out of questions here.
No, I'm
All right. Well,
good.
I'm going to ask my favorite question. What would you tell yourself now? Everything you know now. What advice would you give yourself when you were 18?
If I was 18, honestly, it would be more confident.
Mm,
More confident. I feel like that was probably the biggest change from my 20s to my 30s was, um, if you don't like me, that's okay. If you don't
mm,
like the way I look, that's okay. Like, this is me and this is how I am. I think back to when I was a teenager and you're just, I think, oh, I'm too fat or I'm never going to be smart enough or things like that. And I feel as though I should have been doing way more positive talk to myself at that age because I was not confident. And that kind of lasted through my 20s. I always thought, I need to be skinnier. I need to be smarter. I need to do this. And, you know, then I don't know, something magically happened after 30. And I said, I'm going to rock this and I'm happy with it. And I'm happy with who I am. And I'm happy with where I'm at. And just whatever you do, own it with confidence.
I love it. And I'm going to make the point here of typically on this show, I have like pretty quote successful people, happy people. And that answer has been brought up so many times, the confidence answer. So many people have said, have more confidence, be more confident. And
Mhm.
it's starting to become a theme. And I hope the audience is paying attention to that. So
Yeah.
thank
Just
you
do it.
so much for
Whatever
being
you
here.
do, just own it.
Absolutely. Well, hey,
Yeah.
thank you for being here. Congratulations on owning your home. That's awesome. Good luck to you and your family. And again, thank you.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Everybody, thanks for tuning in. We'll see you on the next one.